Now, no episode on nymphing in rivers is going to be complete without a little mention of something called Euro-nymphing. Euro-nymphing is the current fad, the trend. It catches a lot of fish, a lot of people get into it, so we need to talk about it. And to be honest, it's a big enough subject that this should be an entire episode in its own. And it isn't. We're just going to talk a little bit about what it is and why you do it and show you some of the gear and leave it at that. Euro-nymphing has evolved from Europe. It evolved from Poland and Czech Republic. Those are the areas where this nymphing style started. And basically, it's what's called a high-stick nymphing technique. There's very little casting involved. There's very specialist tackle involved. And it catches a lot of fish. Let's see why and what. So I've got here my Euro-nymph outfit. And I'm going to strip off the leader. And I'm going to strip off some of the fly line, and the first thing you're going to see is the fly line is incredibly thin. Very thin. And that's thin for a reason. It's very, very sensitive. The thinner that fly line is, the more sensitive it is to a grab. So it's very sensitive when a fish takes it. But the thinness means you can't cast it. So when you're Euro-nymphing, you're not so much casting your line, you're flipping the line or pitching it. You drop the line out, you fish your technique, and once you fish the technique, instead of being able to cast, because this line is so light, you can't. So all you do is flip it and pitch it back into the same run again and drift it through again. So it's not really a casting technique. That's because the line is so thin. It's a very visual technique, and it's a very sensitive technique. You use long rods, usually 10'6" or 11 foot in length. You have a very high rod tip. The higher your rod is, the more line you can control. And you're watching. You're watching one of two things. The end of your line is usually going to be bright and colorful like that. That's a visual, so you're looking at that as it's fishing down the river. You've got a high rod and you watch the end of your line. And then you've got a very, very thin leader, a very specialized leader. And the end of that leader also ends in some kind of indicator materials. You can see these two colors here. I've got a kind of a chartreusey color up here and a pink color down here. And these are the colors of the tippet material itself. So with this technique, you tend not to fish an indicator itself. You have the tippet as an indicator. And then on the end of that indicator tippet, there's usually a tippet ring, and then there's some fluorocarbon, and then the fluorocarbon leads off to your droppers and on your Euro-nymphs. And the technique, as I said, it's kind of like a high sticking one. You're going to throw your fly up, lift your rod high, let the rod swing over the flies, and you're trying to keep a vertical line. Some people call this tight line nymphing, and that's a good clue of how to do it. You want to keep a tight line from the tip of the rod straight to your flies, and you have your rod high and you just sweep your rod over the nymph, and you're watching for that little indicator material to stop or to check in the river. And the moment it does, you set the hook. Sometimes it's a fish, sometimes it's the bottom, but if in doubt, you set the hook. As I said, this little chapter is not going to show you much about how to do it and go into the depths of it. It's to explain the kind of gear. And it should pique your interest because, to be fair, not that I do a lot of Euro-nymphing, but it catches so many fish. It's a devastatingly good technique to get into. So you need to do a couple of things. You probably get a longer rod. You can certainly do this on your normal 9'5" weight rod and make a start of it just to see if you like it and get into it. You absolutely need a specialty fly line. You can't get away with a regular fly line. They're just nowhere near sensitive enough. So this is a technical Euro-nymph line that we make at Rio, is that thin line you saw coming off the fly reel. So you do need a special fly line. You also need a special leader. The leader has to be way thinner than your normal leaders, again, for sensitivity. This is a Euro-nymph leader that Rio puts out. You can see it's kind of a white leader, not a clear leader. That's important because you're trying to see your leader. You're trying to watch everything, so you've got to be able to see it. And on the end of that leader, you're going to attach that two-tone colored indicator tip that we showed you there. You can have a red and yellow one like this, or you can have a black and white one, and you choose the color based on your background. If you've got a dark background, the black and white shows up nicely. If you've got a lot of brightness, you've got the red and yellow one here. So you choose your color of your tippet material according to the background. And then on the end of that, you'll put on a tippet ring. On the end of the tippet ring, you put your fluorocarbon. And then the last part of the equation is to fish your nymphs. You can fish caddis pupas, you can fish nymphs, you can fish little worms like this. People catch a lot of fish on worms. So you could use these nymphs for your regular indicator style and your Euro nymph style. The nymphs aren't really different, but the gear is. And again, really the idea of this was just to introduce the concept and to show you the gear you need. If you want to get into Euro nymphing, definitely check it out, get the right gear, check out Euro nymphing and learn how to do it. We're not going to do it in this episode, just wanted to give you an idea of the kind of gear and to highlight what Euro nymphing is all about.